Hello and welcome to the Sleepy Minds. Tonight, we're embarking on a slow, soothing journey through time. So far back, even the stars above us shined in different patterns. A time when Earth's surface was a single continent, drifting quietly like an ancient puzzle just beginning to shift. And beneath strange skies, something remarkable was about to unfold. This is the story of the dinosaurs, how they rose, how they ruled, and how, after more than 160 million years, they made a sudden and dramatic exit. But don't worry, we won't be charging through the Mesozoic like a stampede of triceratops. This is a gentle stroll through prehistoric worlds, a calm unraveling of deep time, a chance to rest your mind and let curiosity guide you, quietly. So wherever you are, maybe lying in bed with the lights turned low, or nestled into your favorite couch, take a deep breath and settle in. The dinosaurs have been waiting a long time. We can take our time too. Let's begin not with a bang, but with silence, the quiet after catastrophe. About 252 million years ago, the Earth had just survived its greatest extinction event, the Great Dying. Up to 90% of all marine species vanished. On land, nearly 70% of vertebrates disappeared. Forests fell silent. Oceans emptied. Even the insects, so often survivors of everything, were struck down in huge numbers. Imagine walking through a forest and hearing nothing. No buzzing flies, no chirping crickets, just wind brushing against withered ferns and the soft crumble of ash beneath your feet. If Earth had a reset button, this was it. A hard restart for life. But life is persistent. And from this stillness, something new would emerge. Let's take a closer look at the world the dinosaurs were born into. It wasn't just a different time, it was practically a different planet. At that moment in Earth's history, all of the continents were fused together into one vast supercontinent called Pangaea. Imagine standing in the center of it, with endless land stretching in all directions. Dry, cracked, sun-scorched. Surrounding this single continent was a single massive ocean, Panthalassa. No Atlantic, no Indian, no Pacific, just water on all sides. The air was thin, the oxygen levels lower. Volcanoes rumbled frequently, spewing ash and gas into the sky. Much of Pangaea was a desert. Not the rolling sand dunes we imagine today, but vast, barren plains of dust and scorched stone. And yet, evolution was stirring. Out of this harsh environment came a group of reptiles known as archosaurs, a name that means ruling reptiles. And they would indeed go on to rule. From this single group would emerge crocodiles, pterosaurs, and, yes, dinosaurs. But first, evolution had to tinker. These early archosaurs were quick, agile. Unlike their sprawling lizard cousins who waddled low to the ground, archosaurs held their legs directly beneath their bodies. This upright posture made walking and running more efficient. It was a small anatomical shift, but one that would reshape the planet. Among the first notable archosaurs was a creature named Eupercheria, a little predator from what is now South Africa. It was small, about the size of a house cat, and likely darted across rocky landscapes on two legs. Not quite a dinosaur, but almost. It gives us a glimpse of the blueprint that would soon take over the world. Around 230 million years ago, in the middle of the Triassic period, true dinosaurs finally stepped onto the stage. They were underwhelming at first. No towering giants. No ferocious predators. Picture Eoraptor, a small, wiry hunter about the size of a dog, weaving through ferns with nimble steps and quick jaws. Or Herosaurus, with its elongated skull and serrated teeth, chasing down early reptiles in the dusky underbrush. These weren't roaring monsters. They probably didn't roar at all. If anything, they may have hissed or croaked, more like angry birds than Godzilla. And in those early days, dinosaurs weren't alone. They were just one player in a crowded cast of strange creatures. Giant amphibians still haunted swamps. Other archosaurs, some with armor, others with crocodile-like jaws, prowled the lowlands. And let's not forget the synapsids, bizarre proto-mammals that looked like someone tried to build a cat using spare parts from a reptile. So what gave dinosaurs the edge? How did these modest little reptiles become the rulers of the Mesozoic? Well, posture was a good start. Unlike most reptiles, who splayed their legs sideways like modern lizards, dinosaurs had pillar-like legs, held straight beneath their bodies, that gave them speed, endurance, and more efficient breathing, especially in a low-oxygen atmosphere. And speaking of breathing, there's something else. Many paleontologists believe dinosaurs had a bird-like respiratory system, with air sacs that allowed for a continuous flow of oxygen. Imagine lungs that act more like bellows, always drawing air in, always pushing it through. While other animals panted and wheezed, dinosaurs just kept moving. Add in a bit of luck, as always in evolution, and the pieces fell into place. Around 201 million years ago, another mass extinction swept across the globe, likely triggered by massive volcanic eruptions as Pangaea began to tear apart. This wiped out many of the dinosaurs' early rivals, clearing the way for their ascent. Suddenly, they had room to grow, room to evolve. Some stayed small and quick, weaving between shadows. Others grew larger, heavier, more experimental. Some became plant eaters, nibbling on ferns with delicate teeth. Others developed long necks for high browsing. And a few kept their carnivorous streak, growing sharper claws, stronger jaws, and hunting strategies that would terrify the future. One fascinating trait began to show up more and more. Feathers. Not for flying, not yet, but for insulation. For warmth. For display. Imagine a tiny dinosaur, shivering on a chilly Triassic morning, fluffing its fuzzy coat like a bird on a wire. Those primitive feathers would one day shape the skies. The Triassic was winding down. The Earth was changing. The pieces of Pangaea were beginning to drift apart. Slowly, silently, like puzzle pieces nudging away from one another. And as the continents moved, so did the dinosaurs. They spread, adapted, diversified, and they were only getting started. As we leave the Triassic behind, we step into the Jurassic period, a time of lush forests, vast floodplains, and a warmer, wetter world. A time when the dinosaurs would truly rise. But we'll take our time getting there. For now, let's pause here, in the fading light of the Triassic, and imagine the first true dinosaurs, padding softly through ancient forests. No thunderous footfalls, no roars, just the quiet persistence of a lineage about to shape the planet. Let's begin our journey in the Triassic period, over 230 million years ago. The Earth looked very different back then. All of the continents were fused together into one massive supercontinent called Pangaea. There were no flowering plants, no birds, no grass beneath your feet, just vast deserts, primitive ferns, and scattered forests of tall cycads and ginkgos. It was a world in recovery. Earth had just emerged from the worst mass extinction in its history, an event that had wiped out more than 90% of all marine species and around 70% of those on land. In this quiet, post-extinction world, life was starting over. And among the many creatures vying for survival, a peculiar group of small, bipedal reptiles began to appear. These were the earliest dinosaurs. They were not giants. Not yet. Imagine something no bigger than a dog, with long hind legs built for speed and a long tail for balance. These early dinosaurs, like Eoraptor and Herosaurus, darted through the undergrowth, hunting insects and small prey, likely under the cover of dusk. They weren't dominant, not even close. They were just one of many strange reptiles of the time, sharing space with croc-like creatures called pseudosuchians, as well as mammal-like reptiles and other ancient lineages. But the dinosaurs had a few advantages that would slowly start to tip the scales in their favor. First, they walked upright. Unlike many of their competitors, dinosaurs had legs positioned directly beneath their bodies, allowing them to move efficiently and conserve energy. This posture not only made them better runners, it helped them grow larger without collapsing under their own weight. Second, their hips and ankle structures were more stable and flexible, giving them greater maneuverability. And third, there's growing evidence that dinosaurs may have been at least partially warm-blooded, allowing them to stay active for longer periods and survive in a variety of climates. Over millions of years, these advantages helped dinosaurs spread across Pangaea. As climates shifted and the Earth continued to heal, the small, fast-moving carnivores and their herbivorous cousins diversified. Slowly but steadily, they began to carve out a larger role in the ecosystem. But their rise to dominance didn't happen overnight. It took time and another extinction. Around 201 million years ago, at the end of the Triassic, the Earth experienced yet another major die-off, likely triggered by massive volcanic eruptions that pumped carbon dioxide and sulfur into the atmosphere. These eruptions were linked to the opening of the Atlantic Ocean as Pangaea began to split apart. The resulting chaos wiped out many of the dominant reptilian groups, clearing the stage for the dinosaurs to rise. And rise they did. What followed was the Jurassic period, often thought of as the golden age of dinosaurs. It was during this time that they began to truly flourish, growing in size, complexity, and diversity. Imagine a world teeming with long-necked sauropods like Brachiosaurus and Diplodocus, their necks sweeping across ancient conifer forests as they reached for treetop foliage. Picture vast herds of herbivores migrating across warm, green plains, followed from a distance by packs of cunning predators like Allosaurus. The continents were still closer together than they are today, but they had begun to break apart, forming shallow seas and lush coastlines. The climate was warm and humid, ideal for sustaining large plant-eating dinosaurs and the ecosystems that supported them. This period also saw the evolution of the first birds, descendants of small feathered dinosaurs that began to experiment with gliding and flight. Archaeopteryx, with its feathered wings and clawed fingers, flitted through the Jurassic skies, part dinosaur, part bird, a living link between two worlds. Back on land, the dinosaur kingdom was diversifying. Sauropods grew to enormous sizes, some reaching over 100 feet in length. Meanwhile, the armored Stegosaurus lumbered across the forest floor, its brain small but its plated back and spiked tail offering protection from predators. But the true golden age was still to come. The Cretaceous period, which followed the Jurassic, was the final and perhaps most dynamic chapter in the reign of the dinosaurs. This was the time of Tyrannosaurus rex, Triceratops, Velociraptor, and Spinosaurus. It was a time of global transformation. Flowering plants began to bloom. Bees and other pollinators appeared. The continents had spread even farther apart, shaping new coastlines and isolating ecosystems, which in turn drove evolutionary innovation. Some dinosaurs became specialized runners, like the ostrich-like Struthiomimus. Others developed elaborate head crests, frills, and horns, perhaps for defense, species recognition, or even mating displays. The ecosystem had grown complex, competitive, and deeply beautiful. And then, it ended. Not gradually, not quietly, but in a single, violent moment. Around 66 million years ago, a mountain-sized asteroid struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The impact released energy equivalent to billions of atomic bombs. Shockwaves traveled around the world. Wildfires ignited across continents. Tsunamis swept through coastlines. And, perhaps most devastatingly, dust and soot choked the skies, blocking out sunlight and plunging the Earth into a global winter. Photosynthesis halted. Plants withered. Food chains collapsed. And the mighty dinosaurs, those who had ruled the Earth for over 160 million years, were gone. Except not quite, because one lineage survived. A group of small, feathered theropods, dinosaurs not much different from the birds in your backyard, made it through. And from them, the avian world we know today emerged. So the next time you hear the gentle chirp of a sparrow, or see the silhouette of a heron gliding over still waters, remember, you are listening to the echoes of the dinosaurs. They never truly vanished. They just changed. Imagine, for a moment, standing in the middle of a Cretaceous forest. The air is warm and damp, filled with the soft buzz of ancient insects. Ferns and cycads brush against your legs as you move through a clearing, where sunlight filters down through towering conifers. You hear a rustle in the undergrowth. And then, silently, a massive creature steps into view. It's a Triceratops. Calm, deliberate, and majestic. 3 horns curve from its head like ancient weapons carved from bone, and its great frilled skull spreads wide like a living shield. It lowers its head to graze on low-lying plants, its beak clipping leaves with practiced precision. Not far behind, a younger member of the herd lumbers forward, still learning how to navigate this ancient world. Herd animals like Triceratops likely lived in family groups, caring for their young and communicating with low, resonant calls, something like the deep rumbles of elephants today. But even in the peace of the clearing, there's always the shadow of danger. Not far from the forest edge, concealed by the trees, a pair of keen yellow eyes watch. The soft pads of clawed feet press into the soil. The hunter waits. It is Tyrannosaurus rex, perhaps the most iconic predator to ever walk the earth. Nearly 40 feet from nose to tail, weighing over 7 tons, it moves with a surprising grace for something so massive. Its jaws alone could crush bone with more force than any land animal alive today. But this wasn't just a mindless killer. Fossil evidence suggests that T. rex may have had excellent vision, a strong sense of smell, and even complex behaviors. Its large brain, particularly the olfactory region, points to a predator highly attuned to its surroundings. And its powerful legs, built for bursts of speed, allowed it to chase down prey, while its tiny, much-mocked arms may have played a crucial role in helping it rise from the ground or hold on during feeding. The Cretaceous wasn't just a time of giants. It was a world of variety, color, sound, and strategy. And perhaps nowhere is this more apparent than in the realm of small theropods. Picture the velociraptor, made famous and often misrepresented by popular films. In reality, this animal was much smaller, closer to the size of a turkey. But it was fast, agile, and almost certainly covered in feathers. With a long, stiff tail for balance and a sharp sickle-shaped claw on each foot, it was built for speed and precision. Fossils found in Mongolia even show velociraptor locked in combat with prey, suggesting it hunted actively and intelligently. Many of these smaller dinosaurs lived in arid deserts and coastal floodplains, while others soared above them. Yes, some dinosaurs were already taking to the skies. The ancestors of birds were experimenting with feathers long before flight evolved. Feathers likely began as insulation, then became tools for display. Bright colors, elaborate plumes, courtship dances under the prehistoric sun. Eventually, some of these creatures, like Microraptor, with its 4 feathered limbs, glided from tree to tree, bridging the gap between earth and sky. And so, in the same world where T. rex thundered through the forests, fragile protobirds flitted through ancient canopies. It was a planet of contrasts, all of it humming with evolutionary experimentation. Now let's not forget the oceans. While dinosaurs ruled the land and early birds explored the skies, the seas were home to their own giants. Marine reptiles, though not technically dinosaurs, thrived in the Cretaceous waters. There were the long-necked plesiosaurs, their paddle-like limbs propelling them gracefully through shallow inland seas. There were sleek ichthyosaurs shaped like modern dolphins. And then, at the top of the food chain, there were the mosasaurs, massive serpentine predators with jaws full of sharp, backward-curving teeth. Some mosasaurs could grow over 50 feet long, and fossilized stomach contents suggest they preyed on almost anything, including other marine reptiles. Swimming through these prehistoric oceans would have felt like entering a dream or a nightmare, depending on who you were. Back on land, flowering plants were beginning to reshape entire ecosystems. Until this point, the plant world had been dominated by conifers, cycads, and ferns. But the rise of angiosperms, plants that produce flowers and seeds enclosed in fruit, introduced new possibilities. This shift brought color to the Cretaceous world. Bright petals, sweet nectar, the first pollinators. And with them came new ways for herbivores to eat, spread seeds, and evolve alongside these plants in a delicate, reciprocal dance. And then, as the Cretaceous came to a close, the stage was set for something unimaginable. All across the globe, strange signals began to appear in the geological record, layers rich in iridium, an element rare on Earth but common in asteroids. Beneath the Gulf of Mexico, an ancient crater waited silently. It had been buried by time, but its story was written in rock. 66 million years ago, the sky lit up. A 6-mile-wide asteroid slammed into the Earth near what is now Chicxulub. The impact released more energy in seconds than all of the world's nuclear weapons combined.
Temperatures soared. Fires raged. Shockwaves circled the globe. But the real devastation came afterward. Particles thrown into the atmosphere blocked out the sun. Photosynthesis stalled. Plants died. And without them, the great herbivores began to starve. Their predators followed. The non-avian dinosaurs, once the rulers of the world, vanished. It's difficult to imagine the silence that followed. Forests, once filled with the calls of dinosaurs and the flutter of primitive birds, fell quiet. Oceans churned with debris. The air, once rich with oxygen, became choked with soot and ash. And yet, somehow, life endured. Among the survivors were mammals, small, often nocturnal, burrowing creatures who weathered the long darkness. Birds too survived, perhaps feeding on seeds and insects, sheltering in forests far from the blast. Life retreated. It adapted. It waited. And in the aftermath of destruction, a new world would slowly begin to form. In the smoldering shadow of the asteroid's impact, Earth was forever changed. Gone were the towering herds of hadrosaurs, the thunderous feet of T. rex, and the quiet grazing of horned ceratopsians. The age of dinosaurs, at least in its most majestic form, was over. But this was not the end of life's story. It was the beginning of a new one. Let's drift now to the quiet places, caves, tree hollows, underground burrows. In these protected nooks, creatures no larger than your hand stirred in the darkness. These were mammals, furred, warm-blooded survivors of the cataclysm. While their dinosaurian neighbors had dominated the land above, these small beings had lived in the margins. Hiding, adapting, waiting. Their time had come. For millions of years, mammals had been evolving quietly in the background. Some laid eggs, like the monotremes. Others nursed their young and lived in family groups. With keen senses and flexible diets, they were built for survival in the harsh new world. They scurried through forests regrowing from ash, feeding on seeds, insects, and whatever else they could find. And slowly, steadily, they diversified. One lineage would lead to primates, another to whales, still another to the early ancestors of you and me. And yet, even in this new world, the dinosaurs never truly disappeared. Because when you look up into the trees today, you might see a robin, a crow, or a hummingbird. Their delicate bones, feathers, and hollow limbs echo with ancient blueprints. Birds are living dinosaurs, the only lineage that survived the extinction. And in their beaks and claws, their nesting rituals and territorial calls, we can still glimpse shadows of the prehistoric. From Archaeopteryx to modern eagles, evolution didn't stop. It simply took a different path. As the age of mammals began to unfold, Earth transformed once again. Continents drifted further apart. Mountain ranges rose. Climates shifted. And the fossilized bones of long-dead creatures slowly turned to stone beneath layers of sediment. For a long time, they slept undisturbed until one day we began to notice. The first dinosaur discoveries were not made by scientists in white coats. They were made by farmers, quarrymen, and shepherds, ordinary people who stumbled upon strange bones in cliffsides or embedded in stone. In the early 1800s, a fossil hunter named Mary Anning uncovered the first complete ichthyosaur skeleton on the cliffs of Lyme Regis, England. Not long after, the first bones of what would come to be called Megalosaurus were unearthed. A new idea began to take shape in the public mind, one that hinted at a prehistoric world that once thrived beneath our feet.
By the mid-19th century, the term dinosaur was coined by British paleontologist Richard Owen, meaning terrible lizard. Museums began displaying skeletons, books were written, and a scientific gold rush began. What some called the Bone Wars. A competitive frenzy to uncover and name as many fossils as possible. This golden age of paleontology uncovered iconic species like Stegosaurus, Apatosaurus, and Allosaurus. But it wasn't just about naming bones, it was about rebuilding a lost world. Picture the scene. In laboratories and university halls, scientists pieced together vertebrae, teeth, and skulls like puzzle pieces from another era. Every discovery added another brushstroke to the vast canvas of prehistoric Earth. And slowly, a new understanding emerged, not just of the dinosaurs themselves, but of evolution, extinction, and the deep, mysterious timeline of life on our planet. Fossils became windows through time, and with them came deeper questions. Why were dinosaurs so big? How did they move? What did they eat? How did they behave, and why, after 160 million years, did they vanish almost overnight? These weren't just questions of science. They were questions of awe. In the modern era, technology has sharpened our vision. High-resolution CT scans now allow researchers to peer inside fossilized skulls and reconstruct brain structures. Chemical analysis can detect pigments in ancient feathers, suggesting colors like iridescent blue or rusty red. And powerful microscopes can even reveal traces of proteins, molecular echoes from across millions of years. We now know that many dinosaurs grew quickly, regulated their own body temperature, and may have cared for their young in nests. Some species traveled in herds, while others roamed alone. Some relied on brute force, others on speed, mimicry, or stealth. And then there's the question of sound. We'll never know exactly what a dinosaur sounded like. They had no vocal cords like ours. But based on fossil evidence and comparisons to their closest living relatives, birds and crocodilians, scientists believe they may have produced deep, resonant calls, perhaps even infrasound vibrations that could travel for miles. So the forest wasn't silent. It thrummed with low bellows, rustling feathers, snapping twigs, and the rhythmic crunch of ancient footsteps. The world of dinosaurs was alive, complex, and filled with sensation. Even today, we're still uncovering surprises. In recent years, fossils have emerged from the deserts of Mongolia, the badlands of Montana, and the limestone of China. Some are perfectly preserved, locked in volcanic ash or amber. Others come with skin impressions, stomach contents, or even entire family groups frozen in time. Each fossil tells a story. Some are tragic, a young raptor buried mid-meal, or a herd of ceratopsians drowned in a sudden flood. Others are mysterious, like the strange dome-headed Pachycephalosaurus, whose thick skulls have sparked debates about headbutting behaviors and social displays. And then there are those that reshape everything we thought we knew. Because science, like the Earth itself, never stops evolving. Long after their bones turned to stone, dinosaurs continued to shape our world. Not just in museums and textbooks, but in imagination, culture, and even the frontiers of science. Think about it. Few other creatures have captured the human mind so completely. Children across continents can name a Tyrannosaurus Rex before they can name all the planets. Toy stores, theme parks, bedtime books, and movie screens are filled with the thunderous echoes of creatures that haven't walked the Earth in over 65 million years. But why? Perhaps it's because dinosaurs strike a perfect chord between the alien and the familiar. They are rooted in our world, bound to the same sun, the same Earth, but they move through it in ways that seem impossible. Some towered taller than buildings. Others had claws like scythes or tails like whips. Some had feathers, others had sails or horns or armor-plated skin. They looked like myths made real. And yet they were real. That tension, the blend of mystery and evidence, of hard fossil truth and open-ended wonder, is what keeps dinosaurs alive in our collective imagination. They also remind us how much we don't know. Every new fossil unearthed feels like a message in a bottle from deep time. And sometimes the messages surprise us. A raptor with quill knobs on its forearms, evidence of feathers. A theropod found brooding its eggs, like a bird. A small dinosaur with long, membranous wings, not feathered like a bird, but stretched like a bat's. Each new find rewrites the story. In fact, even the famous Tyrannosaurus Rex we know today isn't quite the monster of old. We now think it may have been more intelligent than once believed, with keen senses of smell and vision. It may have hunted in packs. And yes, despite its image as a lone killer, it might have even cared for its young. That's the beautiful thing about science. The more we learn, the more the mystery deepens. And dinosaurs haven't just shaped childhoods and cinema. They've helped shape major fields of science. Paleontologists, for example, have pioneered technologies now used in medicine and engineering. CT scanning used on fossil skulls also helps doctors examine living patients. Models of dinosaur locomotion help robotics engineers build better walking machines. And studies of ancient extinction events are helping climate scientists understand how today's biosphere might respond to modern threats. In this way, dinosaurs aren't just ancient creatures, they're active players in the present. Even space exploration has a dino connection. You see, the asteroid that ended the Cretaceous didn't just erase the dinosaurs, it set the stage for mammals and eventually for humans. And now, we've begun to look up and out, studying craters on Mars and scanning the skies for other asteroids. We send robotic probes to distant worlds, and on board we carry pieces of our past, sometimes literally. In 2014, a NASA spacecraft carried a small fossil of a hadrosaur thigh bone into orbit, a quiet tribute to a world lost long ago. And then, there's Earth itself. Walk through the deserts of Utah, or the jungles of Madagascar, or the cliffs of Patagonia, and you're walking where dinosaurs once roamed. Their footprints are still there, pressed into ancient mud turned to stone. Their bones lie beneath your feet. Their distant cousins sing in the trees. Sometimes the past isn't past at all. It's just beneath the surface. And perhaps that's what draws us back to them, time and time again. Dinosaurs remind us that the world is old, that change is constant, that extinction and renewal are threads in the same vast tapestry. They remind us that life is both fragile and resilient, that a creature can live for 160 million years, then vanish in a moment, and still leave behind echoes so powerful, they ripple through time into our very dreams. So tonight, as you rest, maybe picture them, quietly now, moving through prehistoric ferns beneath the stars of a different sky. A herd of triceratops grazing near a moonlit lake. A mother Maiasaura gently tucking her hatchlings beneath her body. A lone Spinosaurus, prowling through misty swamps, the breeze rippling its sail. They are gone, and yet not gone, because in a way, when we study them, remember them, dream of them, they return. Not just as bones in a museum, but as ideas in motion, stories retold, mysteries reopened. They are reminders of Earth's deep memory, and of our deep connection to everything that came before. So tonight, as you rest, maybe picture them, quietly now, moving through prehistoric ferns beneath the stars of a different sky. A herd of triceratops grazing near a moonlit lake. A mother Maiasaura gently tucking her hatchlings beneath her body. A lone Spinosaurus, prowling through misty swamps, the breeze rippling its sail. They are gone, and yet not gone, because in a way, when we study them, remember them, dream of them, they return. Not just as bones in a museum, but as ideas in motion, stories retold, mysteries reopened. They are reminders of Earth's deep memory, and of our deep connection to everything that came before. Here on the Sleepy Minds, we're simply listening to the echoes, tracing the footsteps of time, one soft story at a time. And so, we drift now into the final moments of their reign. The twilight of the dinosaurs. The Cretaceous period, the last chapter of their 165 million year story, was rich and radiant. Dinosaurs had flourished into every niche imaginable. Towering herbivores wandered ancient river valleys. Feathered raptors darted through dense underbrush. Pterosaurs soared on wings that stretched across entire city blocks. And tiny mammals, still small, still in the shadows, scurried beneath their feet, waiting. But as beautiful and balanced as it seemed, a quiet unease rippled through the ecosystems. Volcanic activity was increasing. Sea levels were shifting. The earth was restless. Change was coming. And then, it came. Not with a whisper, but with a roar. Not over millennia, but in a moment. Roughly 66 million years ago, a giant asteroid, 6 miles wide, slammed into what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The impact was immediate and catastrophic. A flash brighter than the sun. Shock waves that circled the globe. Winds faster than hurricanes. Fires that swept forests. And then darkness. Soot and sulfur filled the skies, blocking sunlight for months. Plants withered. Food chains collapsed. Temperatures dropped. It was a global winter. The age of dinosaurs, so vast, so powerful, ended not with a slow fade, but with a single fiery punctuation mark. More than 75% of all species vanished. The mighty Tyrannosaurus rex, the elegant Ankylosaurus, the nimble Dromaeosaurus. Entire worlds of life gone. But extinction is not the same as erasure. The dinosaurs left behind echoes, and clues, and bloodlines, because one group did survive, those small feathered theropods we now call birds. Yes, the sparrow outside your window, the penguin gliding under Antarctic ice, the hawk soaring above a sunlit canyon. These are not just animals. They are living dinosaurs, carriers of ancient DNA, descendants of creatures that once ruled the earth. It's a poetic twist, isn't it? That the fearsome lineage of velociraptors still survives, not as monsters, but as melodies in morning trees. And so, even in their fall, dinosaurs continue to rise. Through the chirps in the forest, the fossils in our hands, the stories in our minds. Here at the Sleepy Mines, we don't just recount what happened, we feel it. The weight of deep time, the tenderness of extinction, the beauty of evolution's winding road. And maybe, just maybe, that helps us slow down a little, to listen more deeply, to remember we are part of this grand, ongoing story. So as you lie back, eyes soft, breath slow, imagine the sky darkening above a vanished world, the wind carrying the last cry of a vanished giant, and a new dawn, rising gently, not for giants, but for the tiny, the patient, the persistent. The dinosaurs fell, but life found a way. The world after the asteroid was quiet, not in the gentle way of a calm forest or a starry night, but a barren kind of silence, the kind that follows disaster. The skies remained dark for months, perhaps years. Photosynthesis, the very engine of life on land, had stopped. Without sunlight, the plants died. And without plants, the herbivores followed. And without them, the great predators starved. It was a cascade, a chain reaction across every corner of the planet. Even the oceans suffered. Plankton populations collapsed, starving the food chains built upon them. Coral reefs withered. Entire ecosystems vanished. It was one of the most devastating mass extinctions in Earth's history. And yet, even in that darkness, life endured. Some mammals survived by burrowing underground, feeding on whatever they could. Some birds, descendants of small feathered theropods, persevered through their ability to fly, migrate, and adapt. And slowly, after the skies began to clear and the warmth of the sun returned, life crept back across the battered earth. But the age of dinosaurs, as it had been, was over. It's easy to see this story as tragic. And in many ways, it is. A magnificent dynasty snuffed out by chance. A world lost to fire and ash. But it's also a reminder of something deeper, that life is never still. It shifts, transforms, passes the torch, sometimes in the most unexpected ways. Because while the non-avian dinosaurs vanished, their legacy did not. Today, we walk in their footsteps, literally, beneath our feet, in dry deserts and mountain cliffs, in riverbeds and rocky shelves, lie the fossils of their bones. Bones turned to stone over millions of years, preserved like whispers from the past. And with every fossil uncovered, a piece of their world returns. A curved tooth reveals a predator's bite. A set of footprints tells us how one moved, how it ran, maybe even how it hunted. A cluster of fossilized eggs shows us care, how some dinosaurs guarded their young. A feather trapped in amber tells of colors we never imagined. These aren't just bones. They're stories, memories written in stone. Paleontology, the science of studying fossils, is like piecing together an ancient, broken mirror. The more we find, the clearer the reflection becomes, but the full picture remains forever elusive. Still, each discovery brings us closer to understanding. And what we've found is breathtaking. That Tyrannosaurus rex, once thought to be just a giant, mindless brute, may have had complex behavior, keen senses, a surprisingly intelligent brain. That Triceratops wasn't just a walking shield. It may have used its horns for display, for social interaction, or even gentle courtship. That many dinosaurs were not gray and dull, but vibrant, covered in feathers, crests, sails, and plates. Evolution sculpting them into forms as beautiful as they were functional. We also now know that dinosaurs weren't sluggish or cold-blooded, as once believed. Many were warm-blooded, active, and fast. Some nested and cared for their young, more like birds than reptiles. And yes, many were feathered, soft, downy, colorful feathers that evolved not just for flight, but for insulation, communication, and beauty. It's a reminder that the creatures of the past were not primitive. They were complex, adaptive, and, in many ways, familiar. And here's something quietly magical. Dinosaurs walked the same earth we do. Not metaphorically, literally. The ground you walk on today might once have held the weight of a stegosaurus or the sprinting feet of a gallimimus. The wind that brushes past your window once swept across the frills of a pachycephalosaurus. The water in your tea may once have passed through the gills of an ancient fish that watched these giants move above. We are not separated from the past by a wall. We are surrounded by it. And sometimes, when the light hits a fossil just right, or when we find a perfectly preserved nest of eggs in the Gobi Desert, or a frozen dinosaur tail in amber, it feels less like studying history, and more like time travel. That's what we love to do here at the Sleepy Minds. Not just share facts, but soften the lines between past and present, between science and wonder, between you and the story of life itself. And here's a curious twist in that story. For decades, people believed dinosaurs were extinct, that their chapter was closed, their tale complete. But then came the realization, confirmed by both fossils and genetics, that birds are dinosaurs. Not just descended from them, but are them. This makes birds the only living dinosaurs, the last of a lineage that once ruled the earth. That robin on your windowsill, it's a direct descendant of Velociraptor. That chicken pecking in the dirt, his DNA carries echoes of giants. The hummingbird sipping nectar in a rainforest, it has more in common with a T-Rex than you might think. So in a way, the dinosaurs never truly fell. They adapted, they shrank, they grew feathers, and they took to the skies. Evolution is not a ladder, nor a march toward perfection. It's a winding path, full of dead ends and surprising turns. And through that path, dinosaurs transformed, outlasting the very apocalypse that ended their reign. And isn't that beautiful? Even in extinction, there is continuity. Even in loss, there is rebirth. We often think of the past as gone. But here at the Sleepy Minds, we like to imagine it as sleeping, just beneath the surface, waiting for us to listen. So the next time you hear birdsong, imagine it as a lullaby from the Cretaceous. A soft note from the Age of Giants. A melody carried across time. In the end, the story of dinosaurs isn't just about creatures with sharp teeth or massive tails. It's about survival, change, beauty in unexpected forms. And above all, it's about time. Time, flowing slowly through layers of rock. Time, brushing dust from fossils with patient hands. Time, carrying a memory from a creature long vanished, into your room tonight. We too are a part of this story. As humans, we arrived only in the final pages of Earth's long tale. But even now, we stand on the shoulders of those ancient beings. We learn from their triumphs, their downfalls, their resilience, their mystery, and we carry that knowledge with us into a future they never saw but helped shape. Perhaps that's the most profound part of it all. That long after their bones turned to stone, long after their roars faded from the valleys, they still speak. They speak through science, through art, through every child who whispers the name Brontosaurus in awe, through every fossil hunter who kneels in the dust, heart racing at a glimpse of bone. They speak through us. And maybe, just maybe, they always will. So tonight, whether you're watching from a quiet bedroom, a gentle train ride, or a hammock beneath the stars, let this thought settle softly in your mind. The earth has always changed. Life has always found a way. And even the greatest creatures to ever walk the planet were part of something far larger. A cycle, a rhythm, a quiet song of time. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Here on the Sleepy Minds, we're honored to share stories like these, tales of deep time, cosmic wonder, and the extraordinary lives that came before us. If you enjoyed this video, we'd love if you tapped the like button, subscribed for more relaxing science, and maybe even shared this story with someone else who dreams of dinosaurs. Because the past isn't gone. It's right here, whispering through stone, through stars, and sometimes through sleep. Until next time, good night.